1, 2, 1, 2. Go ahead. You can do it. Come on. Right? I mean, as a demonstration, right? But it's a dynamic, and I spent my life studying this, dynamics as a profession. The dynamics of movement, when you create pulse action, like when you create swing and sway, the difference is swing and sway. They're not the same thing. They're created at different parts of the body. So understanding the basic dynamics, and then using that to create your dance. Now, when I accent my dance, I have different ways to make different terms work for me to get you to see what I want you to see. But I could call all those things pulsing. I call this a pulse action. Ta, 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 ta. But it's a dynamic. That's a style. That's not a dynamic in the movement, the bass movement. For me, that's my training.
When you say dynamic, what do you mean by that?
There's bass dynamics that quantify movement for all styles.
Okay.
You only move properly in your body in one way, technically. There are different million variations of that one way. But if you look dynamically how your body's built, how it's supposed to work, the sequence of it only works properly in one way.
I mean, we're all built with hinges and swivel joints. So, we're going to move a very specific way. I mean, unless you've been like traumatized, you break something or get something fused or pinned, and or you're suffering from some sort of birth defect or disease. Outside of that, we're built identical in that way. So it's all it's physics, it's biomechanics.
Physics, right?
It's just a question of what we're talking about. And this goes right back to what I was saying before about how when you use a term, you define it. You can either define it formally, or you can define it contextually. So when I talk about pulse in my classes, I'm always talking about the idea of what he was referring to in the taking the music and using it as a point of emphasis. And then when I want you to pulse in a specific fashion, whether it's from the pulse how he uses it, or if it's from resiliency, or if it's a twist, or a sway, or a swing, or some combination of the two, I will then further clarify that in context, right? So it's like, here's the pulse of the music. I put that into your body. Great. Now, I want you to use it here. I want you to use it here. Yeah? So, it's the benefit of having good teachers that will tell you, here's this thing, now do it, and then shape it this way, tweak it that way.
Now, the base action of pendulum, the combination of your forward and back and side pendulums, this is where all of the rotation in the body, the whole thing of the concept of the figure eight, it's all created with how you swing your body. And the forward and back and diagonal action of your body then creates the figure eight. It's not some artificial thing that you do artificially. You make a figure eight with your body. That's not what happens. You swing your body properly, and when you do that, your body swings into a figure eight naturally. That's why it looks natural, because it is. Because the dynamic is built on the perfect movement of your body. And if you keep manipulating that to get your different actions, you get a really smooth rhythmic action that creates the illusion of depth, depth of illusion of this figure eight. Body's always twisting and torquing against itself or swinging with itself to create different movements in the body and different visual perceptions. And then you stylize that by adding accents to it.
Super technical. I hope that made sense to us. Good. I see lots of nodding.
Question. What is the gain and loss from learning against what you originally learned, like in living terms, relative versus what we're learning now, which 1, 2, 3, 4, what's the count, these kind of things? What is the gain or loss? Either like what's the pros and cons of both? What is it? Because I've noticed in taking classes at the beginning it's all 1, 2, 3, 4, but as you get up into more advanced levels, it's like try to do that. And so what is that relationship? What do you feel the relationship is?
Well, one is learning math and one's applying math.
Okay.
Right? You can train in a job all day long, but until you do that job, you ain't never done it. Because what you do in school is usually nothing like a job. You get a job. You get a job, man, and all kinds of stuff. You start applying all that information. There's information and then there's application. So this whole accounting thing, position and movement, this is all the information to get your body in the right place. But then that connection part is the feel part. That's what boom cha, sa, how you You feel the stretch in your body. And that's what all that sounds is to get you to hear what we want you to feel.
It's okay. So here is what is gained, and here is what is lost for those. What is gained is you all learn and progress at a much faster rate than Mary and I probably did. It probably took us significantly longer to figure things out because we didn't have somebody that can communicate directly. Like, this is what I'm looking for, and then break it down to all of these different levels for this kind of stuff. What is lost is you don't feel it for a really long time. It's all intellectualized. And so it's a top-down approach. I explain it to you in your head, and then you start, creating a process. And then once you have that process down, you're able to apply it. And then once you get to the point of being able to actually apply it, you apply it really well. For us, it's a little bit of application.
We went the opposite. We went the opposite.
Yeah.
We learned about feeling it.
Yeah.
And people just doing the sounds, and we just following that. And then figuring out later what the hell we were doing. I've been at this for a long time, just I had no idea what I was doing. I did it good. I could do it every time. You said do that again, I could. But I couldn't tell you what that was. There was no way for me to put that down.
And it's, I think one of the other things that's lost is and this is going to sound a little weird, maybe a little condescending or racist. I don't mean it that way. But you lose the soul of it, you lose the heart of it, because the transmission is here.
It's flat.
And then you have to find it here on your own, versus the way that we did it is it was here and then it worked its way up. And for probably the last 5 years, we've been working really hard at trying to replicate the process of how I learned from here and into this without having you have to struggle, to get the little tiny pieces just by watching someone else. And I think that the ability now to have lots of different instructors who come at the process of teaching against from all these different angles, but all aiming to get you to that same point, it gives you a benefit that Barry and I never had. Because like he said, everybody taught with the okay and do it.
Yeah, do it.
What? So I was taught Lindy Hoppers here. You know the shim sham?
Yeah.
I was taught how to shim sham, not originally, but eventually by Leonard Reed, who's one of the two people who actually choreographed that routine. And his whole thing is, and every tap dancer I know says this, if you can say it, you can do it. And so he would just sit there and go, ta ta good do good da, and they say it. I'm like, let's go with it. And so I eventually got people to say it and say, okay, now do it. And I'm like the Bill Cosby episode where he's watching his kid dance, he's just doing his feet. Yeah. Everybody else is like, who's Bill Cosby? But eventually he came to me and he's like, okay, he just took my hand and said, here we go.
Yeah, right.
And
Exactly.
Okay, I can do that. And so the struggle of trying to figure out what these things are when there weren't really terms for them is hard. But you feel it here, and eventually works its way up to here. So, that's one of the loss. You guys get brought into the culture after having learned the dance. You become, as I like to call, part of the living tradition. Once you know blues and you dance blues, you are blues. You will guide it where it's going to go in the future. But you can't be a part of the tradition if you're only on the outside looking in. Like, I see that, and I have learned a couple of blues moves, and now I'm going to use them on this other thing. Well, that's great, but you're not doing blues because you're not here yet. You're not inside of it. You haven't embraced it, and it hasn't embraced you yet.
So you're still here for that.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other thing is we're understanding what blues actually is. It is a specific genre of actually movement. And the subculture was recreated by, some Lindy hoppers who really didn't have any idea what blues was. They were looking for a late night venue to get laid, basically. They started doing blues dancing, but nobody really was teaching blues. When you start doing it, these blues after parties, people don't know how to do blues. So they all started teaching blues. But nobody went back to learn what blues actually is.
There were two people running around the Lindy Hop scene that were
Running around.
and it was, frankly, it was me and Stephen Mitchell. Both of us, just like Barry, had picked this up from our family, from our relatives. It's what we grew up with, and people would have us as we were, traveling the country, teaching Lindy Hop. They're like, hey, can you do a slow dance or a blues class? We need one class, and it's just like 94, 95, 96.
People are like, are you kidding?
Yeah, and I'm like, am I getting paid for this? Then yes, I can teach. Yes,
I can make that happen.
And Bill Brigida was doing the same thing. He kind of picked it up from Stephen, and so he started teaching blues in like 97, 98. And then around 99 to 2004 is when it really exploded in the Lindy Hop scene. But most of the people who were teaching blues at that point were just using that term to teach how they danced to slow music. So slow dancing to slow music. And about 2004, 2005 is when like Heidi and Charlie really started with the Cheap Thrills and St. Louis, Blues Exchange. And, they had been doing some research and they brought in, Ogden and Marilee and then me and then all these other people, and then it all started to coalesce. These people who had been either dancing it from the beginning or had really spent a lot of time researching, because they knew blues is music and they dance to this music. And the things that I'm seeing these people do to non-blues music and calling blues doesn't look like anything that I see. Like, Charlie and Heidi lived in St. Louis, so they would go to blues clubs where they were like the only white people there. They were the only people under like 50. And like what these Lindy Hoppers are doing and what these old black folk are doing don't look anything alike. The music is completely different. Why? And so they started going, and so that's where it was. You had these different pockets of people who knew the dances and were researching the dances. You had these different people here who knew the name and knew like what blues as a feeling the music kind of evoked. And so they were trying to reach for that, and that's why they used the term. But that really caused a lot of confusion for like a decade, which was really just now passing.
Right, so we're just now getting on. There's fusion, and I think fusion dancing is beautiful. Slow dancing into blues music, if you want to call it that, you can call it that, but don't call it blues because it's not.
It's a real thing, it's a real music.
It's real. It's real.
So I didn't spend 33 years of my life, making this up on my own. I wish I could. And take credit for it. I would patent that.
Yes, I do it all.
That's right. If you're going to do anything called blues dance, you owe me money.
So then,
Do you feel like the torch is being successfully passed? Or are you waiting for that to happen?
Oh no, I definitely think that there are people out there who are students of mine or students of my students who are going out there and they're dancing, and I look at them like, if I brought them home, and I took them to a family reunion, the old folks would be like, and that's high praise right there.
yeah.
Because if they were doing it wrong, it'd be like, here's the mild reaction. Like, what you have to understand is like,
Here's my mom. She need to be looking at me at the side level.
yeah, you get that side.
You get the side level. You're in trouble. You